What happens when all four engines of a jumbo jet fail at 37,000 feet? On June 24, 1982, 263 people aboard British Airways Flight 9 suddenly found themselves facing a silent threat and unseen killer that not even the plane's radar could detect. In less than 2 minutes, every engine would shut down, leaving nothing but the sound of rushing air and a cockpit full of warning lights. The captain had only seconds to make a decision that would decide whether anyone made it home alive. Could you stay calm as the clock ticked down and disaster closed in? Imagine settling into your window seat, the sky outside pristine, the hum of the engines steady and almost soothing. Flight 9, a British Airways 747, cruised at 37,000 feet over Indonesia. The atmosphere inside was unremarkable, just another leg of a long journey. A mother quietly read Mansfield Park by the window, her son dozing beside her. Flight attendants moved through the aisles with practiced calm, offering drinks and gentle reassurances to tired travelers. Captain Eric Moody and his crew, fresh from their Kuala Lumpur stopover, kept a close eye on their instruments. The weather radar showed nothing unusual. The sky outside was empty and clear, giving no hint of what waited ahead. Yet calm skies can hide trouble. Unseen by anyone on board, the plane was flying straight into a hazard no technology could detect. Passengers, lulled by routine, stared out at the darkness beyond their windows, unaware of any threat. Then, a subtle change. A faint bluish glow began to cling to the leading edges of the wings and crept across the windscreen. At first, it looked almost beautiful, like ghostly fire dancing along the metal. One passenger nudged a companion, whispering, "Do you see that?" The glow, known as St. Elmo's fire, caught the attention of both travelers and crew. Some remembered reading about it, but few had ever seen it up close. The cockpit crew watched as the eerie light flickered along the windshield. Then, another sign. A sharp, acrid odor filtered through the cabin vents. As one passenger later recalled, it smelled like electrical burning or sulfur. The smell was unmistakable and unsettling. The crew suspected a possible electrical fire somewhere on the plane, a rare but manageable emergency. They moved quickly, running standard checks and scanning their panels for any sign of trouble. But the instruments showed nothing out of the ordinary. No warning lights, no evidence of smoke or overheating. Passengers began to notice a haze forming above their heads, curling through the air. Some shifted in their seats, trading worried glances. A few pressed their faces to the windows, mesmerized and anxious, watching the strange blue light intensify. The mood in the cabin shifted from mild curiosity to a quiet unease. The unfamiliar smell and the growing haze didn't fit any normal in-flight experience. Still, there was no clear reason for panic, just a sense that something was off. The crew's confusion grew. Flight engineer Barry Townley Freeman checked every system but found nothing to explain the glow or the smell. The lack of answers only heightened the tension. Meanwhile, the passengers' unease deepened as the haze thickened and the sulfuric scent lingered. The cabin, moments ago filled with quiet routines, now felt charged with silent questions. Suddenly, a flash of orange erupted from one of the engines, visible even from inside the cabin. Flames stretched along the length of the wing, startling those who saw it, yet the cockpit instruments still showed no sign of a fire. The disconnect between what the crew saw and what their instruments reported was unsettling. They assumed an electrical fault until the engines themselves betrayed them. The true threat wasn't visible to anyone on board, but its effects were immediate and devastating. The 747, once the epitome of reliability, was now gliding silently over the Indian Ocean NITS for engines dead. Its crew facing a scenario no commercial pilot had ever encountered. This was unprecedented. Never before had a 747 lost all four engines at once. There was no checklist for this, no chapter in the manual that could explain what to do next. As the aircraft lost altitude, the scale of the emergency became clear. A 747 can glide about 15 kilometers forward for every kilometer it descends, buying precious time but offering little comfort with the ocean below and the mountains of Java ahead. In the cockpit, Captain Moody radioed a mayday to Jakarta. His calm voice described a total engine failure. But the air traffic controllers on the ground struggled to grasp what they were hearing. All four engines? The disbelief was clear. Such a failure seemed impossible. Inside the cabin, the mood shifted from confusion to dread. The reassuring sound of engines had vanished, replaced by silence and the hiss of oxygen masks dropping from above. Some passengers clung to each other. Others sat quietly, the reality of their situation settling in. Moody later admitted that, in those moments, he felt a personal sense of guilt, wondering if he'd missed a warning sign, or if there was something he could have done differently to prevent this. But there was no time to dwell. The crew's focus narrowed to one goal: get the engines running before the 747 met the sea. The invisible enemy was volcanic ash fiend, abrasive particles ejected from Mount Galungong and suspended in a cloud that radar couldn't see. The ash entered the engines unnoticed, melting in the extreme heat and forming a sticky glaze that choked off airflow. With each passing second, the situation grew more desperate. The crew, led by Moody and flight engineer Barry Townley Freeman, cycled through restart procedures again and again. They attempted at least 20, possibly up to 50, restarts, far more than any drill had ever demanded. Each time, the engines stubbornly refused to respond. There was no playbook for this. Every restart attempt was a combination of training, instinct, and hope. The crew made manual adjustments, recalibrating controls, flipping switches, and improvising under pressure. All the while, the ground loomed closer, options dwindling. The psychological toll was immense. Even as Moody projected calm over the intercom, he wrestled with doubt and the weight of responsibility for 263 lives. Just as hope began to fade, a low rumble broke the silence. One of the engines sprang back to life. The crew seized the moment, stabilizing it and pushing for more. Another engine followed, and then another. Finally, all four engines restarted, each one roaring back with the promise of a second chance. The threat from the ash cloud was still real, and the engines remained fragile, but the possibility of survival returned. With the engines running, the crew knew the danger wasn't over. They had escaped the worst, but the fight to bring everyone home safely was only beginning. Inside the cockpit, the sense of relief was brief. The blue glow of St. Elmo's fire still danced along the windshield, a sign that volcanic ash was not done with them yet. The crew had to get the aircraft out of the ash cloud, but the danger wasn't just in the air. Engine number 2 suddenly surged, its power spiking and dropping without warning. The crew knew what this mentone-controlled surges could lead to: catastrophic failure or fire. With no other option, they shut down engine 2 completely, leaving only 3 working engines to carry the massive 747. Each remaining engine was still at risk of choking on ash, and every decision now carried the weight of 263 lives. Passengers in the cabin sensed the tension, even if they didn't know the technical details. The acrid scent of burning lingered, and oxygen masks dangled in front of faces. Captain Moody's calm voice over the intercom reassured them. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be attempting to land shortly." He sounded steady, but inside, he felt the pressure of every choice. He had to project confidence, knowing that fear could spread faster than any emergency. The ash had done more than threaten the engines. It had sandblasted the plane's exterior, leaving the windshield nearly opaque. First Officer Roger Greaves later described the glass as looking like wet cement, a 2-inch strip of visibility at the base, but nothing more. The cockpit's blowers and wipers were useless against the gritty residue. The crew could barely see the sky, let alone the approaching runway. They would have to land almost blind. Other instruments were unreliable too. Airspeed indicators fluctuated, and the autopilot couldn't be trusted. Moody had to adjust speed and descent manually, relying on instinct and years of experience. Every movement demanded precision. The margin for error was razor thin. As Jakarta's airport came into view, the last critical systems failed them. The glide slope, the guidance system that helps pilots align with the runway, was down. The landing would have to be done by hand, with visibility close to zero and only gut feeling to guide them. For 30 seconds, not a single word passed between the pilots as they lined up. Each crew member focused on their role, aware that a single mistake could mean disaster. The 747 descended, wheels reaching for the tarmac. The moment the tires hit the runway, the entire cabin seemed to hold its breath, then erupted into applause and tears. Relief swept through the plane. On the ground, Maintenance teams quickly confirmed what the crew had suspected. The invisible enemy was volcanic ash from Mount Galungong, its fine particles still coating every surface. The ordeal tested every skill and instinct the crew possessed. There was no manual for what they faced, no precedent for the choices they had to make. But in the crucible of crisis, their decisions had made all the difference. Their story offers a lesson that goes beyond aviation, a lesson about what it truly means to lead when everything is on the line. For Captain Moody, the experience didn't just end on the runway. He later joked about forming the Galungong Gliding Club, a nod to how close they'd come to disaster and how the ordeal reshaped his outlook on flying. The crisis also led to real changes in aviation. Pilot training worldwide now includes specific recognition and response protocols for volcanic ash clouds. It's a direct result of what happened that night. If Moody's calm under crisis inspired you, hit like and subscribe for more real-life stories of survival. One passenger, Charles Capewell, said afterward, "You take a different view of life when you've been that close."